Man, I always believed that the hardest part of marriage was building a life with somebody. And I mean, yeah, but nah. Actually, the hardest thing to do in marriage is rest in the work that you've already done. So this is episode 2 of Do I Still Believe? And in this series, I'm revisiting my old music and asking a very simple question. Do I still believe what I said in those raps back then when I wrote them? And in this episode, we're gonna talk about my 2015 album, The Epiphany of Marcus Graham. And we're gonna talk about how I thought about relationships back then compared to how I understand them now since I'm married. Okay, so context. I released 3 projects that use Black romantic comedies as framework to explore relationships. I used Love Jones on a project called The Nina Mosley Experience. And there I talked about young love, the kind that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it feels incredible. I used Have Plenty on a project called The Haviland Savage Theory. And I talked about toxicity, gaslighting, manipulation, and the fear that those things derive from. And then I used the 1992 film Boomerang for The Epiphany of Marcus Graham. And I used Eddie Murphy's character to explore what it looks like when a man is finally ready to settle down in a committed relationship. That was 2015. For personal context, I had been divorced for a little while, but I started dating somebody and I really liked her. And for the first time since my marriage, I began asking myself a different question. Do I want to be in a committed relationship? And I remember praying and asking God straight up, like, yo, is this my wife? And the response was not a clear yes or no. The response was, if this is what you want, you need to prepare yourself. And at the time, I didn't like that answer. And I keep it even more real, I didn't even understand the answer. And in hindsight, I just wanted God to be like, yeah, that's her. And it's funny because that relationship did not last very long at all, but I was left with this question. So I did what a lot of people do. I started asking my married friends, specifically people who were living a life that I found interesting and that I would want to replicate. But when I would ask my married friends, I never really got a clear answer. They would say things like, it's hard work, you have to sacrifice. And to me, at that time, those were very broad, general, gray statements. And I wanted something more clear. Is this worth my time? Or should I stay doing what I'm doing now? So I just got frustrated because I felt like people weren't being honest with me. And I believed that if someone could just give me a real answer, then that would be enough and I could make my decision. Fast forward. I got married in 2020 and I was in the early stages of deconstructing my faith. So we're experiencing major spiritual shifts. We're also experiencing major family shifts. My wife got pregnant shortly after we got married. We experienced a lot of death, some expected, some unexpected. I started going to therapy, and this was the first time that I went to therapy and I couldn't just like spiritually bypass it and just say Jesus in there. Like, I had to really sit with some realities and I had to confront how much help I actually needed. And that's when it clicked. I finally understood what my married friends were trying to tell me. What they were saying is that marriage is sacred. Now, I had heard that phrase before, but what I didn't hear and what I didn't understand was the protection that was baked into that statement. When you commit to someone and you actually do the work, you are learning things about them. You are learning things about yourself. And those things are deeply intimate, very vulnerable, super private, and you have to carry that context responsibly. You have to be mature, you have to be humble, because that kind of knowledge requires protection. And honestly, what I learned was that a lot of people don't have language for what they're going through because this work is messy, and messiness can be damaging. You can get jaded, you can hold resentment, you can and likely will be hurt by this person that you're building this life with. A lot of fighting, a lot of miscommunication, the process of emotional regulation, dealing with the things that you want to change about your partner, but they will not change, or maybe they're not changing at the speed that you would like for them to. It takes a lot to get to the place where you can carry that kind of complexity. And it takes a lot for someone to get to the place to even obtain clarity to find the language for what all of that encompasses. Yes, you're committing to a person, but more than that, you're committing to a process. And that process is layered, it is complex. But the humility comes in when you recognize like, yo, so are we. And True relationship can thrive when you carry that with a level of respect and honor and dignity. You know what I'm saying? So when people say marriage is hard work, they're not lying. That is very true. But there's another piece to it I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about. Yes, you're building a life with someone, like that's a kind of work. But the other work, and what I believe to be the harder work, is resting in the work that you've already done. A lot of us do not trust easily on various levels. We carry that mistrust into our relationships, and most of us don't even know how to give or receive love unconditionally. Yes, we can do it with our kids. Yes, we can do it with our parents. But those peer relationships, those romantic relationships, that is way more difficult. Love requires vulnerability, and that is something that we just do not do very well, generally. So to be able to trust that the work that you've done is solid, the house that you built, the foundation that you laid, the siding, the brick, the floors, that will actually hold, that's difficult. Most of us are not good at that. Many people bring their survival mode into the relationship. We don't know how to receive the help that we need. We do not know how to rest. So the miscommunication and the difficult conversations, I mean, they're kinda about logistics and conflict, yeah, sure. But they're really about admitting what you actually want. And it takes a lot of work to get to a place where you feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to communicate what you actually want. Because what you want often requires the help of this other person. And asking for that help requires vulnerability. And that kind of vulnerability you're not really gonna get from premarital counseling. You're just not. Now, if you grew up in a healthy environment, if your parents were together for a long time, your grandparents, and you saw them move together in their rhythm, and they gave you access to see how they built that, yeah, you might have a shot. You might have a shot. But even then, you still have your own journey. Watching someone else do it doesn't guarantee that you'll be successful. Like I said, many married couples don't have language for what they're experiencing. And they're so inundated with the work that they don't even have the clarity or the space or the peace to even look for that language. And here's what I've learned, whatever speaks the loudest is the language that they go with. If mistrust is loud, if fear is loud, if pride is loud, that's what speaks. But if patience is loud, if humility is loud, if encouragement is loud, if affirmation is loud, those are the things that will reign in the household. See, back then, I thought marriage was all about being ready. I felt like I needed a clear answer before I could move forward. And oh my God, that can apply to so many other areas of our lives, right? But what I've learned in this short time, because I'm still learning, I'm still growing, what I've communicated is not something that I have mastered, but marriage is about being willing. The willingness to be seen, the willingness to carry another person's story with care. And that's what sacred actually means to me now. It's a promise. It's a responsibility. It's a protection. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the real question isn't even for me anymore. It's for you if you're watching up until this point. Are you willing to do the work that makes protection possible? And are you willing to rest in it once you do? My name is Armond WakeUp, and this is what I believe.